In this video, we're demonstrating the processes that we use to make 5 different styles of clocks in woods. So as always, the start of this process is to mark your project out on the wood itself. We've selected 5 different types of wood to make these clocks from. So we've taken reclaimed woods and we're using oak, mahogany, walnuts, Dutch elm and some flowering lime, what you refer to in America as basswoods. There's 2 different styles that we use to get the design onto the wood. The one is to use templates and to mark around the templates on the wood. The other is to stick a design onto the wood itself. In this demonstration, you'll see us using both processes. Onto our first style of clock then, and this is being made in oak. You can see us demonstrating drilling out the hole. That will be used later on for doing our pierce work. We then cut the outline of our clock. And this is a mantle style clock, so one that would traditionally be put on a mantelpiece. So we cut that basic outline using our bandsaw. We then go across to our scroll saw and we will cut out that hole that will be used to put the clock insert into. You may notice that what we've done with our piece of wood here, there are some cut marks, some saw marks at the bottom and the top, and these have been done in preparation for afterwards we will separate the back and the front and we'll actually make 2 clocks from this one piece of woods. We're always trying to be more efficient and we're always trying to be more sustainable and environmentally friendly in the work that we do. And when we looked at this particular piece of wood, we thought if we cut it in 2, we can actually get 2 clocks out of it as opposed to 1. So this means that we're working more efficiently, but also we're working more sustainably and more environmentally friendly because we're now getting 2 products as opposed to just 1. So to finish off separating our 2 mantle clocks from one another, we use the handsaw, cut it out in between each one, and we'll end up with 2 separate clocks. We put some super glue, our Starbond super glue, and use the accelerant, and we're going to stick our mantle clock face to the base. Now you notice I used a clamp and then a piece of wood, and this just helps us to line up the position centrally more easily. As you can see then, we've also made 2 little feet, and these will be stuck to the base of our mantle clock, and you'll have 2 little feet then on your mantle clock design. For our love spoon style clock, we start off by marking an oval shape that will be used to mark out our bowl. We also mark a line across the center, and what we do, we cut back to that outside line and work into our center. Sand it all down and you've carved the bowl of your love spoon. We then go on to our pillar drill, and this is going to be used for doing all of the holes that will make up the pilot holes for doing our pierce work and also the inside of our Celtic inspired weave. We then go across to our scroll saw, and we will use this then to cut out the recess that will be used for putting the clock insert into. We also do our internal cuts for our Celtic weave, and then we're on to the external cuts of cutting the outline of our love spoon. The wood we're using for this one, a piece of walnut reclaimed from some old furniture, a beautiful timber to work in, and it gives you a lovely character and colour in the grain. So once we finish with the scroll saw, we then go on to the bandsaw, and this can be used to cut the outline of the bowl section of our love spoon clock. And it can also be used to do the angle pieces because we shape our bowl afterwards on the belt sander. So that's what you can see us then working on, is shaping everything using a rougher grade, something like a P40 or P80 on the belt sander. After this, we're on to our hand carving, and it highlights how we can use our woodworking skills and wood carving skills together. So we're using the wood carving skills to create that weave. And the effect that we're trying to create with the wood carving skills is that the weave, that Celtic weave, goes under and over. A process that we've demonstrated several times before, but very effective on a love spoon style clock. Something that I enjoy with this process is as you're carving, you start to reveal the beautiful colour and character of the grain that is underneath that paper design. So just gradually take away the waste wood that you don't want in your carving and then shape the design as you like it. Once we finish our hand carving, we then go through the process of hand sanding everything nice and smooth, and we're preparing our clock ready for being finished. We put it back on the belt sander using a finishing grade of grit, something like a P120 or a P150, just to take off that paper drawing and prepare it for the hand finishing. Now we're on to our mini grandfather clock. So the start of that process is to cut around the top using our bandsaw, and we do a pilot hole ready for cutting out the wood that we don't want that will be used to insert our clock movement in. You may notice that we take advantage of all of the equipment that we have available to us. So we don't just use the scroll saw, we use the bandsaw and also our coronet saw for doing different parts of the process. Now there's different circumstances where we feel that the one machine has an advantage over the other. Have a look through our videos. We have actually done a little bit of an insight into when we use the one as opposed to using the other. But basically, our bandsaw a little bit faster for doing those external cuts. Our coronet saw really accurate for doing straight lines, and our scroll saw is superior for doing things like internal cuts. So as you can see, a lot of the process for making our mini grandfather clock is working on the coronet saw. We're going to use dowel to put together the different parts. So that's what you can see us doing now, is marking out the position that we want the dowel in. We're using a spike and marking out the centers, and that allows us to be nice and accurate in our positioning for our dowels. Now when it comes to drilling the holes, our preference is to use the pillar drill, and the reason for this, it drills accurately again. It's all about accuracy. Because it cuts straight down in a straight line, it allows us to be nice and accurate, and afterwards that means that the different parts of our grandfather clock can be put together more accurately and more easily. Onto then the belt sander, smooth everything down. Once we have finished sanding everything down, we're then going to use our hand carving skills again, just to add a little bit of detail to the central portion, the front central portion of our mini grandfather clock. So we just do a simple little design, almost like a little diamond in the center, and then using the individual shapes of all of our fingernail gouges, because they are different sizes and different sweeps, we can create just a little simple design to add some character and flair to our mini grandfather clock. We then go on to putting the dowels into the different part of the design. So we've made some dowel. If you want to know the process we use for making dowel, we have done a previous video showing how that is done. Put that dowel in position, a little bit of super glue around the position of the dowels. We then put it into our vise and gently squeeze all the different parts together. Once we have finished putting those parts together, we then go on to putting our base plate onto our mini grandfather clock. We're using our super glue and the accelerant. Make sure you're really accurate when you position things, because that accelerant makes the super glue go off super fast. Now then, onto our next clock. With this clock design, we are working on a piece of mahogany, and it's a reclaimed piece of mahogany from some old furniture. You might be able to see some of the holes that we used for fixing the furniture together. This is like a teardrop style. It's a clock to be hung on the wall. As you can see, we are putting a dragon emblem on this particular design. I like including the dragon. It's a national emblem for us here in Wales. And I like using mahogany because it's got a red tint to it. So our dragon here in Wales is the red dragon. So we have that redness of the mahogany in the design. As you can see, we're drilling all of our pilot holes. We're using different thickness of blades. They have to be thick enough, wide enough to feed our pinless blades through. We start off then by cutting the recess that will be used to put our clock movement in, and then we're on to our scroll saw again to cut out all of the internal, that pierce work for our dragon. So this is where you need quite a bit of accuracy. Our Hegner and Nikua number 9 reverse tooth blade combination is ideal for this because it does a really clear and accurate job of cutting out all of our pierce work. So you cut all in and around the shape of the dragon, sand the clock down, so you're smoothing it out. Initially we've cut out on the bandsaw, but one of the drawbacks of using the bandsaw is it leaves those saw marks, those teeth marks. So sand it all out, and then again we're on to our hand carving skills. You may notice throughout a lot of our projects and a lot of the work that we do, we combine our wood carving skills and our general woodworking skills. And if you're learning woodworking, or you're learning wood carving or scroll sawing, adding these extra skills of wood carving to your process or scroll sawing to your process can really boost your work onto another level. Again, similar to the previous spoons where we've done some carving, as you're cutting away the design, you're cutting away that paper and you see that beautiful grain with its colour and character below. The dragon, not the easiest of carvings to do, but it has beautiful, intricate details on it. So a carving that we do enjoy, being a national emblem here in Wales, one that we are very familiar with and regularly use on our bespoke love spoons and our range of love spoons that we make here at our family workshop. So you can see we do a little bit of sanding just to smooth off after we've done our carving. We get the different depth and different levels of the carving that we want. And then the final part of the carving is to add all the different pieces of detail. We then go on to our pillar drill again, and this is to drill a hole in the back of our clock, allowing the recipient to be able to hang it on the wall. We also go back to the belt sander, and we're working on a finishing, a smoothing grade of sandpaper, just to sand everything in preparation for the hand sanding and the hand finishing. We also take off any little sharp edges that might be left. Onto our final clock, and in some ways this is a little bit more of a simple design. So if anyone's a beginner and interested in getting into making clocks in wood, this might be the most suitable one to start with. We're working in a piece of line, and as you can see, we drill that initial pilot hole again for the clock insert. We use our bandsaw to cut the outline, but remember, use the equipment you've got available to you. So if you use a scroll saw, you can do the same on a scroll saw, and in some ways it's a little bit more accurate. The advantage of using the bandsaw is it is quicker, and we've got access to the belt sanders, so afterwards we can sand it nice and smooth. Again, we're using our scroll saw to cut out the recess that will be used for inserting the clock movement. If you haven't got access to that, remember you can get different cutters, and they can do the same job as the scroll saw is doing in this example. We then go on to our belt sander and smooth everything out. Now what I'm going to also do on this design, I'm going to add a daffodil, another national emblem here in Wales. Just makes it a little bit more personal, a bit more unique. So we're going to add that daffodil motif that will go in just above the clock itself. Nice thing with these projects then, you can adapt them in all sorts of different ways. So this design being a little bit more plain, what I'm also going to do is to create the effect of chip carving around the outside. So I've marked out where I want each chip to go. This can be done by hand, but please be aware at different points it can be more difficult because you're going against the grain. Another way that you can do it, as I'm demonstrating here, I am using an oscillating sander, and you can just sand at a 45-degree angle and create the effect of chip carving. Afterwards, we'll add some extra details to this clock design. But this is a nice thing, you can adapt these projects however you want to and make them fit in with what you do, your style, and develop them accordingly. So as you can see, as I mentioned, we're just using our hand carving skills and doing some little indents in between to add just a little bit of extra flair to this design. But if you are a beginner and this is new to you, don't forget that you can keep it nice and simple. The clock itself gives the item quite a unique look, so you don't need to add those extra bits that I've done. That's what we try to do through our channel, is to give suggestions for what you can do. You can then see that we use our oscillating sander just to widen the gap for the clock insert, but also to sand it nice and smooth. So we're just taking advantage of the equipment we have available to us and just making that gap for the clock insert just a little bit bigger, and also finishing it more nicely, more smoothly. Final part of the process is to finish all of our clocks. So our usual process is adding 3 coats of shellac sanding sealer, and after that we add a finishing coat of linseed oil mixed with beeswax. When it comes to applying your shellac sanding sealer, remember you always try to apply it in the same direction as the grain. So you don't work across, you apply it with the brush strokes in the same direction as the grain of the woods. After you finish applying your shellac, you then rub it down and repeat the process 2 more times and finish off with that linseed oil mixed with beeswax. After that then we include our clock inserts, and depending on what movement you've got, they fit in different ways. And there you go. That is how you can make different clock designs in woods. Let us know in the comment section which one of those clocks is your favourite and which do you plan on having a go at making yourself. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you know when we upload another video. And as we always say, thank you again for watching.